What is up, everyone? I'm coming at you with the first game of this NFL season in the books. We had the Chiefs versus the Patriots, and what a way to kick things off with the big upset. Chiefs 42, Patriots 27 in Foxborough. Not a lot of people saw it coming, and a lot of different takeaways that could be had from this game. And that's exactly what we're going to address in this video. Specifically, the different reactions coming out of this game and how they impact this fantasy season and whether to buy or to sell on those ideas. So let's get right into it. So looking at our first set of points, we're going to focus on the Patriots and look at those top big name guys that were taken in the first couple of rounds and what we can expect from them moving forward. So with that being said, let's focus in on Tom Brady to begin with, because a lot of people invested a third or fourth round pick in him and projected him to be a top 2 fantasy quarterback. Now, if you look at his stats, he went for 267 yards and 0 touchdowns. Additionally, 0 interceptions as well, so that was nice, but definitely not that kind of night that we were expecting from Brady. But I'm here to tell you, do not fret. Do not go ahead and trade Brady. He will finish this season as a top 5 quarterback. Don't worry, because that Chiefs defense is legit. They have a good secondary. They have a good front seven. Additionally, there were a couple 4th and 1 conversions that the Patriots didn't get. And if they do convert those, that's a whole different statistical night, not only for the team, but for Brady as well. Now, moving forward, let's look at Brandon Cooks, because there was a lot of talk that with Edelman hurt, Cooks would explode. And that raised his draft stock a little bit to earlier second round. But looking at his night, he had 3 receptions for 88 yards. Now, actually, this was kind of the case that I was making before, that Cooks wouldn't necessarily be the main guy to take Edelman's role, because he's never been that hands guy on a team. He's usually been that big home run threat. And that's reflected from the night he had, because he averaged pretty much 30 yards per reception and only had 3 receptions. Now, to me, this kind of worries me a little bit, because I don't necessarily think he is going to be that great of a PPR option if you drafted him early on. But in the long scheme of things, I think that he still finishes close to top 10 receiver, maybe top 15. I think the value does drop a little bit, especially when you saw what Amendola did. He had 6 receptions for 100 yards. Definitely looked like he was a little bit more of a favorite target for Brady, but I think that rapport will continue to be built, and Cooks will have some bounce back games. Now, let's shift our attention to the tight end, Rob Gronkowski, because maybe no bigger name than him on that offense, and a lot of big expectations for him as well. When Edelman went down, we thought, he's going to get more receptions, especially in that short yardage stuff. Going to be a big red zone target. And what does he go and do? Well, he finishes the game with 2 receptions for 33 yards. And that is not a stat line for the number 1 tight end being drafted overall in the second round. Now, I would tell you, don't worry. A lot of people, again, might say, oh, we're going to sell our Gronk stock. Don't do that. Keep Gronk. First of all, he was matched up pretty much the entire night with Eric Berry previous to the injury on Berry. And Eric Berry is a legit shutdown guy. Now, he made it a tough night for Gronk, and you could see that. In addition, in the first quarter, you saw that there were a couple times that Gronk was targeted in the red zone, and that continued throughout the night. So I would not be worried. He will get those opportunities in the red zone. He had that would-be touchdown that got reversed when it was all said and done, but you should feel confident. If that touchdown's on the board, much more respectable night for Gronk. But it does show that Brady has faith, as you would expect, in Gronk when they are in the red zone. And not every game will Gronk be going up against the likes of Eric Berry. So feel confident with Gronk. I still think he's going to finish as the best tight end in all of football if he stays healthy. And finally, the big name in terms of performance to mention on the Patriots side is none other than Mike Gillislee. So a lot of people were thinking, oh, guys like Mike Gillislee, should we put him in our lineup? Flex guy, running back 2. Well, if you went ahead and put him in that lineup, you were very nicely rewarded because he finished the night with 3 touchdowns on 15 attempts and 45 yards. But I'm here to tell you, if you were thinking Gillislee is going to be a top 10 running back or top 5 running back after last night's performance, slow your roll. And I would actually urge you to try and trade him right now while his stock is extremely high coming off that 3 touchdown performance. Because if you look closer at his stat line, he did that on 15 attempts and had 45 yards. That's a 3-yard average per attempt, which is not good for a running back. On top of that, he got all of those touchdowns on pretty much just 1-yard carries. So, okay, he is their top red zone guy, but if you also have to take into account that from time to time, Brady will take those 1-yard touchdowns through the quarterback sneak in the red zone. And also, that just makes Gillislee a much riskier option because he is a very touchdown dependent running back. Because you take those touchdowns away from him, and he finishes the night with 15 yards or 15 attempts for 45 yards, which is just awful, honestly, for a running back. 4.5 points, that's nothing. And on top of that, he didn't have any receptions, so that even further lessens his value. And pretty much the takeaway from me is, if you have Gillislee after that monster performance, don't get your hopes up. I don't think that this is going to be something he duplicates every single game, this multi-touchdown performance. If you can, sell on Gillislee high right now. You will not regret it. Shifting our focus now, however, to the team that came out victorious, and that is the Chiefs. Let's look at the players that performed for that team, and there were a lot of them. But again, we'll start with the quarterback, Alex Smith. And looking at his stat line, the guy finished with 368 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Now, that is probably the best game of Alex Smith's career because he was pretty much perfect. And to do it on that stage versus that opponent makes it even more impressive. So, what a lot of people might be thinking is Alex Smith now a top 5 fantasy quarterback? Is he a top quarterback option week in and week out? And I would say, I definitely think this game elevates his status. I would now certainly value him over a guy like Matthew Stafford, Dak Prescott, maybe even Phil Rivers. But to me, what I would urge you to do, if he's still on the waiver wire, go ahead, put in a waiver hit for him, get him on your bench, use him when the matchups are good. But if some people are trying to trade you Alex Smith and they're asking a lot for return, don't bite on that because Alex Smith has always been a very up and down quarterback. He has some really good performances like he did tonight. And then he has some pretty pedestrian performances. And I would just say this, he's in a very tough division. And on top of that, the Chiefs probably played the best game they will have all season because everything clicked offensively for them. And that was apparent because they had a couple guys blow up on that team. So let's shift focus to one of those other guys in Tyreek Hill. Now, Hill finished the game with 7 receptions for 133 yards and 1 touchdown. And a lot of that yardage came from his 75-yard touchdown. So other than that, he had 60 yards on 6 receptions. So I would say don't necessarily expect this kind of performance from Hill week in and week out. Obviously, he's got the speed, so he can get behind defenses. But that touchdown that he had was just a completely blown assignment by the Patriots. And it's not going to be that easy week in and week out for Hill. Now, Hill was a guy that I stressed that I loved going into this fantasy season, and I still do. I think this shows that he is a baller and that you should not worry about a sophomore slump with him. But I'm just saying, don't be relying on Hill as a wide receiver 1. Definitely as a high upside wide receiver 2 if I had to rank him. So if you drafted him, good job. The injury he had at the end was more cramping than anything else, so don't worry. He definitely had a great performance and I think is a great person to have in your starting lineup moving forward. Now, let's move on to a guy that another pass catcher maybe didn't have the best night, Travis Kelce. He was being drafted in around the third round, maybe early fourth, and projected to be a top two fantasy tight end. And looking at his stats, he probably had the most disappointing night of all the Chiefs because he finished with 40 yards on 5 receptions. So if you're in a PPR league, a little bit more respectable, finishes with 9 points, but in standard leagues, only 4 points and 40 yards. And you thought on a day where the Chiefs offense went for 42 points, you would have definitely thought that Kelce would have been a bigger part in that offense. And so maybe some of the reaction is, man, we're a little bit worried with Kelce. And I would kind of actually agree with that because with all those weapons that kind of broke out in this first game, I think there will become more and more focal points in the passing game. And I would kind of drop Kelsey's stock a little bit because in a game that was that high scoring, obviously every game is going to take on a different form and different people are going to be focal points in every single game. But to me, the fact that Kelsey only went for 40 yards in such a high scoring game worries me a little bit. It shows that maybe he's becoming a secondary option in that passing attack. I thought it would be a little bit more different with Macklin gone, but we'll see. It's still early, but I would say maybe temper the expectations on Travis Kelce for now. And then finally, the guy that we have to talk about because, well, everyone is talking about him, and that is Kareem Hunt. Because Kareem Hunt did something spectacular. He put up 40 something points that first game, and he is going to be the fantasy MVP for week one. And a lot of people are saying Kareem Hunt is the new Zeke for this year. Now, do you buy or sell this point? And I would say I'm wary of this. Obviously, the guy had an insanely incredible performance that was super impressive. But if you kind of look at the game film a little bit more and break it down half by half, I would say the performance becomes a little bit less impressive because during the first half, he pretty much had about 45 yards and he only got his touchdown at the end of the first half with about 10 seconds to go. So prior to that, he wasn't that impressive. Started out the night with a fumble, and I bet you for all those Kareem Hunt people that started him going into the first half, the end of the first half, right before that touchdown, they were cursing themselves and saying, why did I start Kareem Hunt right now? All he's done is fumble and put up 45 yards. Why didn't I start a guy like Mike Gillislee if I had him instead? Obviously, though, the night turned a lot better for Kareem Hunt as he finished in the rushing column, 17 attempts, 148 yards, 1 touchdown, and then maybe even more impressive in the receiving category, 5 receptions, 96 yards, and 2 touchdowns, where he had a 78-yard touchdown, which is insane. And again, let's break it down by category, starting with receiving, because it was nice to see him targeted a lot. Definitely gives you a lot more comfort with him in PPR leagues. But I would say, taking away that 78-yard touchdown, he is at 20 yards receiving, which isn't that great. Still, he did get the targets because before that he had 4 receptions. And the 78-yard touchdown, though, was, again, I thought, a blown coverage by the Patriots and a perfectly placed ball by Alex Smith to Kareem Hunt. Now, I don't think that's going to happen week in and week out. I thought there were a lot of defensive lapses, so I thought that was an abnormality in terms of those really long touchdowns for Hunt and for Tyreek Hill in addition. And then looking at the rushing touchdowns, again, he had 1 rushing touchdowns, 148 yards, and he did a lot of that. He had a 58-yard run, so that was his biggest of the night. So take that out of the equation, he's down to 90 yards. And, I'm not trying to hate on Kareem Hunt. I'm just saying this was a game where a lot of things broke right for him, and I would urge everyone to temper your expectations if you're getting some insane trade offers, because I have seen that. People have asked me, should I take an offer? I just got one for Kareem Hunt, Julio Jones straight up. And when I see that offer, I would tell you jump on that offer immediately because Julio Jones is a proven stud. He's healthy. He's still got Matt Ryan. And for Kareem Hunt, this was a game where everything broke right for Kareem Hunt. This is his ceiling. I don't think he will be producing these games week in and week out. But still, if you got him, kudos to you. I think you can, without a doubt, now have him as a high upside running back 2, possibly running back 1, and moving forward, especially if you got him in the later rounds before the Spencer Ware injury. Again, congrats. You got a steal, possibly the biggest steal in the draft. And with that, wrapping this video up, let me know, did you guys agree on my takes, whether to buy or sell some of the reactions coming out of the game on the individual players and on their seasons moving forward? Let me know in the comments. And in addition, if you enjoyed, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.